Hi everyone, it's Emma. Last time I talked about the 3 ways to get data science interviews, namely role application, reach out to the gatekeeper, and getting referrals. No matter which way you prefer, one thing in common of all these methods is that you always need a good data science resume at hand to send it out. A good resume turns the tables when it goes to the recruiter. So that is the topic I'm gonna cover today. What constitutes a good data science resume? To make it helpful, I will not only talk about the series, but also show you 2 resume examples, one from a junior data scientist and the other one from a more experienced data scientist. And I will provide suggestions for improvements for both of them. Here is an outline of this video. We'll go through what is a data science resume, what the sections to include in the resume, what are the 3 do's and 3 don'ts of a good resume. Finally, I'll summarize the key takeaways of this lesson. To answer this question, let's step back and understand what is a resume. A resume is a summary of your achievements. It's meant to be brief. It's not a place to showcase all your skill sets. Adding too much content to it will only overwhelm people with unnecessary content. So in your data science resume, you want to highlight the most important things such as work experience, training, and skill sets that are related to data science, so that when a recruiter or a hiring manager sees your resume, they immediately get the sense that you have lots of experience in data science and you are a qualified candidate. There are 4 sections that are must-haves in a data science resume, which are contact information, professional experience, education, and skills. You may also consider projects and certificate sections if you don't have a lot of work experience. There are 2 things that you want to pay attention to when organizing your resume. First, the order of the sections is important. Make sure you put the most important section first. If you have any relevant work experience, definitely put it right after contact information. So the right order would be contact information, professional experience, projects, education, skills, and certificates. Second, remove sections that are not absolutely necessary, such as volunteer experience and hobbies. As I mentioned earlier, adding too much content will only distract people from finding useful information. Let's take a quick overview of 2 resumes. The first one is from a junior data scientist, Steve, who got some really good experience from internships, and he's working as an AI scientist. He also has lots of training in data science, as you can see from the certificates he obtained. His resume has a very clean layout. It's clear that he puts into some design effort, which is great. His resume has all the sections we just talked about: contact information, work experience, education, certificates, projects, and the skills. There are some additional sections in his resume: award, languages, volunteering, and my time. As we have mentioned earlier, if a section is not very relevant to data science, I would highly recommend removing them in order to make the resume concise and highlight the most important achievements. Also, the industry expertise section seems to be related to data science, but those are actually skills that evaluated by Steve himself. Self-assessments of levels of expertise are inherently subjective and unreliable, so I usually don't recommend having such a section in the resume. I would have them merged into the skills section. Another resume is from a more experienced data scientist. It has a clear structure with contact information, education, skills, professional experience, and academic projects. There are 2 suggestions I would give to this resume regarding the structure. The first one is to swap the order of professional experience and education. You want to show the most important part of your resume first. As you can see, Sam already has over 6 years of relevant experience in data science, which should be prioritized over education. The second suggestion is to change the title of academic projects to projects, because the word academic could be a little misleading for recruiters. The recruiters may think either this person don't have a lot of industry experience or this person's experience is more academic research oriented. This is an overview of the structures of two resumes. Two tips are: put the most important sections on top of your resume and remove unnecessary sections. We have talked about the overall resume structure and 2 tips to create a good resume. Now let's talk about the 3 do's and 3 don'ts, which are the principles of writing a good resume. We will go over the 3 do's first. The first and most important principle is to keep your resume within 1 page. Recruiters and hiring managers receive a lot of resumes every day, and they often have less than a minute to look over someone's resume and make a decision. If your resume has multiple pages, most likely they won't even get to the second page. Adding more content will only distract them from finding useful information. For Steve's resume, it's totally possible to condense all the critical information into 1 page. As we mentioned earlier, there are some sections can be deleted or merged together to make the resume fit in 1 page. In terms of the design, if you have a 2-column resume like this, and your resume cannot fit into 1 page, I would recommend changing it to a 1-column design, just like the other resume we have seen. This 1-column resume looks less pretty in terms of design, but it feels more professional and is more efficient in terms of space. Our second principle is to be selective and curated of the content. This principle mostly applies to the experience and projects sections. In these sections, make sure that each item has no more than 4 bullet points, and the first point should always be the most impactful one measured by business metrics. Let's see how we could apply this principle to the resume. Let's first take a look at the AI scientist position that Steve has. The responsibilities include forecast patient and nurse supply, design pipeline for analytics, solve the optimization problem, and automate staff scheduling. It looks like the most impactful items are improved hospital operational efficiencies by 15% and halve the staffing costs for large-scale operations. So we want to move these points to the top. Also, there are 5 bullet points under this experience, and let's see whether we could reduce them to 4. It looks like the last bullet point, lead R&D in operational solutions, is a summary of all previous bullet points. This is a little redundant and it can be consolidated into some previous points. For example, we can rewrite the second point as lead R&D in operational solutions and halve the staffing cost for large-scale operations using discrete optimization, deep learning, and reinforcement learning. Our next principle is to be concise and clear. Your resume demonstrates your written communication skills, and you want to show that you could communicate effectively. You could achieve this by removing redundant phrases and rearranging verbal expressions. It's also important to balance the level of technical detail. Let's see some examples. Here is one project from Sam's resume. I first noticed the term parse categorical cross-entropy with underscores. Since Atom Optimizer is already a technical term, adding more details to it is not going to be helpful for recruiters. I will simply remove it. Also, there are some first-person expressions such as we are dealing with and I have predicted. Those should be also deleted. In the last sentence, we see this expression, whether a customer will buy again or not. This is not concise or formal. I will change it to customer's repurchasing decision. So the sentence will be, use Atom Optimizer with categorical data to predict customers' repurchasing decision with 89% accuracy. The main point here is to use less words to express the same idea. Let's now go through the 3 don'ts rule. we will move from the fundamentals to techniques to make your resume stand out. The first don't is that a good resume should never ever have typos or obvious mistakes. A simple typo suggests a lack of attention to detail, which is a red flag. I highly encourage you to have a few friends do a peer review of your resume to make sure there's no typos or grammatical errors. The benefit of having another person look at your resume is that they may catch minor things that you missed, such as alignments, text formatting issues, and etc. For example, when I reviewed Sam's resume, I noticed there are some minor formatting issues, such as the time ranges for his education are not vertically aligned, and the line above professional experience is truncated. This kind of small issues may be neglected when you write the resume, but it's easy for others to catch. Let's move on to the final two tips. Those will make your resume stand out. The second don't is what I call don't tell, show. When describing your experience, projects, and the skills, it's extremely important to show the numbers and the metrics so that they are more reliable and trustworthy. Showing specific details makes your resume memorable. Specifically, when describing your contribution, it should be measured by business metrics, such as improvement in user retention, conversion, and reduction in bounce rate and cost. Here's an example. Instead of writing significantly increased conversion rate, you could be more specific about the outcome. A better version is double conversion rate from 0.3% to 0.6%, translating to $2 million increase in annual revenue. Also, we want to be specific on the size and type of the data that was processed. For example, you want to distinguish whether you use structured or unstructured data, and what's the size measured in gigabytes or terabyte. This kind of information helps the reader understand the technical challenges you were facing. For example, instead of using processed survey data, we could say processed 1 terabyte of unstructured survey text data. In addition, showing the specific technologies makes the resume more convincing. It includes the programming language, statistical or machine learning models, tools for ETL, and data visualization techniques. Let's compare two examples. Strong coding skills versus contributed 2,000 lines to Apache Airflow using Python. Greatly improved model performance versus improved accuracy by 20% and reduced the training time by 30% using XGBoost algorithm. Obviously, more specific statements are more convincing and reliable. The last tip for today is don't send one version of your resume for all positions you're applying for. To make your resume stand out, it's always worth adding customized tweaks to it for each application. The very simple thing you could do is, when you notice some important keywords and skills in the job description, use those keywords in your resume and highlight your skills in those areas. Another thing would be helpful is to reframe your experience, projects, and skills sections to fit the context of a job description better. Let's see an example. Twitter has published this data scientist consumer product position. There are 10 requirements for this role. I'm not going to read through the requirements, but I have highlighted the keywords that can be used in a resume to better fit the position. In short, Twitter is looking for a candidate who has experience in statistics, metrics design, dealing with big datasets, and knows how to translate analysis to business impact. Also, the candidate should demonstrate some mentorship and leadership skills. Let's see how we could customize Sam's resume to fit this position at Twitter. Only by looking at the two most recent jobs he had, he fulfills at least half of the requirements on the job description. I have highlighted the relevant keywords in his resume. So, vast datasets is similar to heterogeneous data sources and large datasets. Metric design is related to identify key metrics. Mentorship and leadership can be demonstrated by delivering in-depth training and supervising 3 associates. Sam has experience to build a fraud detection model which fits the requirement model user behavior. He also has skills in Python which fits the job description. There are a few requirements that are missing in his resume, such as statistical techniques, causal measurement, time series forecasting, and being able to translate analysis towards business impact. But that would require Sam himself to think through his experience and see if anything relevant could be added. And now we want to focus on how we could customize this version of his resume to fit the context better. First, we need to delete all the unrelated bullet points to save space to elaborate the more relevant ones. So we reduce the 7 points to 4 for the first position and reduce the 5 points to 3 for the second one. Then for each of the requirements in the job post, we could add more details to the corresponding bullet point to make the resume more reliable and trusty. All my suggestions are highlighted in red. Specifically, I suggest to add the size of the data to fit the requirement on vast datasets. Also, we could be more clear on the metric design capability by adding what metrics were defined in the description. For mentorship and leadership skills, it's helpful to explain what kind of training was given and the associated business impact. Finally, for modeling user behavior, I suggest to elaborate the analysis that was done before building the fraud detection model to demonstrate his analytics skills. After making these changes, the resume highlights certain skills in the job description and it would fit the requirements better. Now let's cover the key takeaways of this video. To recap, we talked about the 4 required sections and 2 optional sections of a data science resume. The 3 do's of a resume includes always keep your resume 1 page long. Be selective and curated of the content. When you describe your experience and projects, be concise and clear. Reduce all redundancies in the description. For the 3 don'ts, first, don't tell, show. Show the numbers and metrics, such as showing your contribution measured by the business metrics, showing the type and the size of the data, and showing the technologies that were used. Second, don't send one resume for all job applications. It's always worth adding a few customized tweaks to it for each application. Finally, no typos. Ask a friend to review your resume before sending it out. Your resume is only part of the job application, but without a good resume, the rest won't matter. So an action item for you today is to refine your resume based on our 3 do's and 3 don'ts rule. Remember that the goal of this video is to help you find your first data science job. So I'd love to get feedbacks from you to make it more helpful for your job search. Drop a comment below if you have any questions or feedbacks. Stay tuned, I'll see you in the next set of materials.